Welcome, everyone. My name's Brian Mark. I'm the Dean of Science here at the University of Manitoba, and I want to welcome you to our second annual Entrepreneurship Speaker Series. We have a great lineup today, and so thank you again for coming. But before we begin, I'd like to state the land acknowledgement that we're located on the lands of the Anishinaabe, Cree, Ojibwe Cree, Dakota, Dene peoples, and on the national homeland of the Red River Métis. We respect the treaties that were made on these territories, and we acknowledge the harms and mistakes of the past. And we dedicate ourselves to moving forward in partnership with Indigenous communities in a spirit of reconciliation and collaboration. So again, welcome to our second annual lecture for the Faculty of Science Entrepreneurship Speaker Series. So as the Dean, I've had lots of opportunities to meet with all the wonderful alumni of the Faculty of Science and have had a chance to speak with them about all the fantastic things they've gone off to do in their careers, whether it's professional school, but in the focus today are those that have branched out into the private sector, become entrepreneurs to develop new and interesting ways to solve problems. And we'll hear from Stasi Baran today about what she's been up to. So the point of this speaker series is to also share those experiences that our alumni have had with current students and to plant the seed of entrepreneurship in your own minds and to make it clear to you that there are just innumerable opportunities that a degree in science can open up for you. And we can only share within this speaker series a tiny portion of all the wonderful things that have gone on, but we've selected alumni from our own university to come back and speak to us today so that you can experience from them and have a chat with them afterwards. We have a Q&A later on to ask some questions about how they got from where they were as a student to where they are today. So please enjoy the seminar today, and we'll catch up afterwards. So before we begin with Stasi and the presentation, this November is the inaugural Entrepreneurship and Innovation Thinking Month here at the University of Manitoba. And I'd like to take a few moments to share some of the initiatives that are going on beyond today's event. All right, so if I transition here, I've done that already. In the Faculty of Science and in collaboration with the Price Faculty of Engineering, and thank you, Marcia, the Dean of Engineering, he's here with us today. There was a white paper that came out from the University of Toronto a number of years ago, which demonstrated and it explored where do the majority of entrepreneurs come from out of post-secondary education. And it turns out that the majority of entrepreneurs actually come from the Faculty of Science and Engineering. The business school, of course, offers great courses in entrepreneurship, but many of the entrepreneurs from post-secondary education actually come from science and engineering, as you might imagine. And the business school, of course, supports their endeavors by providing them the business acumen that's needed to actually carry these ideas forward into the marketplace. So in light of that white paper, we have created a course called the Entrepreneurial Mindset for the Scientist and Engineer, and it's a co-delivered course. There's a course number in science and there's a course number in engineering. So students from each faculty can register and learn and be introduced to the concepts of entrepreneurism. The science section is already full, but there are still seats available for engineers. Any engineers in the audience here who are interested, by all means, consider the course. It's been delivered now for a few years, so it's becoming quite polished, and I encourage you to participate in that course. It's great. All right. There's also a number of events going on beyond the Faculty of Science. Before I get to those, though, we also have in science a new Science Innovation Hub, which has been created and fosters research, innovation, and entrepreneurship and brings together industry and external partners with change makers in the Faculty of Science, whether you're a student or a professor who has a new idea that can lead to some marketable product, development of intellectual property, patents. All of these tools and opportunities are coalesced together under the Science Entrepreneurship Hub, or Innovation Hub, which is led by Krista Kruk, who's in the background here. I want to thank, of course, for organizing today's event. The Hub offers workshops, open houses, internal funding opportunities, competitions that bridge the gaps between science, innovation, and entrepreneurship, and the entrepreneurship ecosystem that exists and is growing within the University of Manitoba, but also beyond our campus. It also provides tailored strategies to connect our researchers and students with opportunities to fully realize their potential of their ideas. So to learn more about the upcoming workshops and what the Science Innovation Hub has to offer, please scan the QR code here or on the posters that are provided around today's event. So moving on beyond the university or beyond the faculties of science and engineering, there is a new event called Better Together, which is a campus-wide event which is designed to build entrepreneurial thinking. It's a 2-day event over which time you'll have the opportunity to learn with other students, faculty, and staff about the entrepreneurial mindset, and students who participate will receive a $100 honorarium. So that's a pretty good way to encourage students to participate. But regardless of the honorarium, I encourage all the students to participate in this event. To find out more, please visit the website that's listed on the page here. Another event that's happening is the Spirit to Innovate. This is a competition that's open to students at the University of Manitoba, or actually all post-secondary institutions in the province, to learn about innovation while collaborating in a fun and exciting way to build up a minimal viable prototype in just a few days. So there will be an information session on November 21st at noon in the GSA Lounge, the Graduate Student Association Lounge, for any interested students. So I encourage you to attend that event as well. And you can scan the QR code here to find out more information. All right. So on to today's event. It's my pleasure to introduce Dr. Stasi Baum as today's speaker, or say Stasi Baran, I'm sorry. Our format today will be a presentation by Stasi, followed by an interview hosted by our very own Janine Carmichael, who is the faculty specialist in entrepreneurship here at the University of Manitoba. And we will also have some time for questions before we conclude today's event at around 3 o'clock. Dr. Baran is the co-founder and COO of nQube Data Science. As part of the team that has been integrating AI into the gaming industry for several years, she has played a critical role in developing AI-based solutions for slot floor optimization and player-segmented solutions. Driven by her interests, she pivoted from the academic world to the casino industry, where her innovative approach and extensive experience in implementing casino artificial intelligence technologies have been made essential to the success of the nQube AI-driven casino technology suite. So Dr. Baran obtained her PhD in electrical and computer engineering from the University of Manitoba. She also has obtained academic degrees, including a BSc in physics from the Faculty of Science, as well as a Master's of Science degree in Astrophysics. With her multidisciplinary expertise, she develops fitting applications for nQube's advanced AI technology in casinos, merging her interests in data modeling and the gaming world to encourage innovation and efficiencies into the gaming industry. So with that, please join me in welcoming Dr. Baran to the stage.
Thanks. I didn't realize how short I am. I'm hidden behind this screen here. Thanks very much. Thanks for that introduction, and thank you everybody for coming here today. I really appreciate being invited here to speak about my entrepreneurial journey. My name is Anastasia Baran. I'm the COO of nQube Data Science, and I'm opening up with a picture of myself at one of my very first trade shows with nQube Data Science. So I was very optimistic about the future of nQube at the time and our very cute little booth at our first trade show. So I want to start by saying Viva Las Vegas. So just a bit about the fabulous city of Las Vegas, Nevada. In 1905, it was established as a railroad town. In the 40s, it experienced considerable growth because of casinos with a notable mob influence. In the 50s, there was some very interesting atomic tourism because of the nuclear tests that were happening there. And in the 60s, it was an entertainment hub. Now, in the late 20th century was the emergence of mega resorts, like the Mirage, like the Bellagio, really the Vegas that most people know today. Now, my family would be absolutely horrified if they knew that I was showing you this picture, but this was my aunt and mother taking me to Las Vegas when I was 14 years old. That's right, 14. So don't worry, I didn't gamble, but I'm just showing this to show that my experience with the city goes back very far, and I've been back numerous times since. You can see my mother holding up her iced tea to emulate the Statue of Liberty at the New York Hotel and Casino. I have many pictures of myself holding beverages in front of that same statue. It's a bit of a family tradition. So why am I showing you what looks like vacation photos? Well, nQube Data Science primarily works on AI applications in the casino industry. So we're the pioneers of AI in gaming. We've really been in the space since about 2016. Our flagship product is called Real AI, which is a slot floor optimization product. So we consult in gaming and related fields as well. We are a small company. We're really focused on tech development. So we focus on creating IP and deploying it to a small number of customers as a boutique firm. So my role, other than running day-to-day operations, running the company, doing a little bit of everything because of, it is a small company, is science communicator. So I do a lot of speaking on artificial intelligence at gaming conventions. We do some educational series on AI and gaming. And I really speak to our customers about how AI can help them and really help them understand why AI is making the decisions that it does for their slot floor. And I also have the opportunity to meet a lot of celebrities. So here's me and my partner Jason with Siegfried at a gaming conference. So there's a lot of young people in the audience. If you don't know, Siegfried is part of an entertainment duo that really brought entertainment to Las Vegas. And he has all these white tigers. He was showing us around his garden and we got to see the white tigers. It was amazing. And then on the right, that's a picture of me with another gaming industry icon. You might know him. His name is Pac-Man. So my education looks like this. I got a Bachelor of Science from the University of Winnipeg in 2007. I followed that with a master's degree in astrophysics from here at the U of M, which I got in 2010. And then I went on to do my PhD in electrical and computer engineering, and I followed that with a one-year postdoc. I also had the opportunity to do a lot of summer schools and summer research programs, which I was really excited about, and I think really helped me see that there are other things out there. I was part of the MIT Mars Gravity Project, where we sent a satellite full of mice into space to determine how Mars gravity would affect them. The Very Large Array Summer School in Socorro, New Mexico, which was a great program where you go out to the telescope there and learn all about it. And I got to be a part of the Curious Summer Research School, which is an undergraduate astronomy school that takes place at Mount Wilson Observatory, which is a historic observatory just outside of Los Angeles. It's a great program, and I'd encourage anybody. I think 2 of these are still around, so if you're interested in these programs, please check them out. So how did my entrepreneurial journey start? Well, I was a postdoc in ECE here at the U of M, and I was trying to figure out what my next steps were going to be. So am I going to continue along my academic path or do something entrepreneurial? And I'll be the first to admit that while I was very proud of my work as a PhD student and a postdoc, my paper count was not such that I was about to become a professor. It would have taken, quite a few more years as a researcher to really get there. So I was looking for other opportunities, and I love science, and I wanted to figure out a way to apply science into industry. And my partner, who was here actually, had an AI-driven optimization tool that he'd been developing over 20 years. He's actually in the Department of Physics and Astronomy here. And I knew that this tool was very powerful. It was being deployed in many areas, but not in a very commercial space. So I was looking for a way to apply it in industry. But I was also thinking to myself, why start a business? And you might be asking yourself that as well. Well, I mean, money is one answer, and whether that means, stability money, making a living, whether you want a Silicon Valley level buyout, I mean, money is a motivator, absolutely. Maybe you have a great idea that you want to see come to fruition. You crave independence or a challenge, or you want that continuous learning experience for when you're exploring new industries. Maybe you're like me and you don't really like being told what to do. Maybe you want to be your own boss. But what I was really motivated by was to have fun at work. And that's what was really driving me when I was trying to find a way to apply this AI technology. So as you saw in those photos, I've been going to Las Vegas for a really long time, and the gaming industry occurred to me. Is there a way to apply AI optimization in gaming? So I started looking at the University of Nevada, Las Vegas archives, and I came across this thesis by Kasra Gaharian, where he was using a mathematical approach, a linear programming application, to optimize slot floors. I thought it was a really interesting paper. But as we know, there are limitations to linear programming methods, but I thought our technology could totally blow this problem out of the water. I printed the paper, I put it on my partner's desk, he didn't care. It was there for months. And then finally, when he looked at it, he was just inspired. And we ended up going through the results of the paper, and we realized that like I said, our technology can completely, we can actually solve this problem correctly. So we started creating the first sophisticated nonlinear slot floor model. It really captures the global dynamics of the slot floor, and it has a very fine time resolution as well of about an hour over several years. So that was Real AI and when it was born. So shortly after we started developing Real AI, we started looking into conferences, conventions, pitch competitions in the field of gaming. We had started going to some of them and learning more about the industry. So one night, we were drinking a bottle of wine, and we realized that there was a pitch competition that the application was due for in about 2 hours. So we had an argument about whether it was worthwhile applying, and ultimately we scrambled and we got this application together and we submitted it with 30 seconds to spare. And we didn't really think much of it after that. But a couple weeks later, we got an email saying that we were going to be one of 5 finalists for this pitch competition at the Global iGaming Conference. So we traveled to San Diego to participate in the Gigsy speech, and this is a photo of Jason presenting our work to a panel of judges, most of which looked very interested, except for that one gentleman. But we ended up winning. So this is really where our journey in gaming began. So what we were pitching there was our flagship product, Real AI. And now that AI is so hot, I feel compelled to say this is AI before it was cool. So Real AI, what it does is it tells casino operators which slot machines to buy, which ones to retire, and where to put them on a slot floor. It learns player preferences from a casino's own historical data. Casinos have amazing data. It's really second to none. Because it's such a heavily regulated industry, they're required to keep very fine details on all of their players and essentially every game that's played on their floor. It optimally segments both players and machines, and then it becomes a complicated matching program like Netflix, but better. And it provides specific slot purchasing and retirement recommendations that's very finely tuned to a casino's own players. It also optimizes product placement. So what's the best way to take advantage of slot floor real estate? It provides projections of slot revenue after these changes are to be made. And one thing about Real AI is it's really explainable AI. We're able to tell casino operators why the AI made a decision it did. It's not a black box like a lot of neural network techniques are. Now, some of the benefits to casinos are that it explores, tests, and refines millions of different slot floors. It seems like 1 million is a big number, but this is actually amazing because 1 million is such a small number. The AI itself is able to reduce that search space to a manageable number of casino floors to test. It saves time and effort for slot professionals because they have a bunch of pre-computed solutions that they can choose from. If they want to move 10 machines, no problem. If they want to move 150, they can choose that solution as well. It's easy for your Real AI to make recommendations that can get up to 10% an increase in slot revenue. Sometimes we've even seen higher. And just as an example, what this means, a small casino could get an additional $2 million a year, a medium-sized casino, $9 million, and a large casino can get an uplift of $45 million a year. Now, the core principle behind Real AI is that the casino floor is an ecosystem. And this is a very unique perspective. So many business-focused data scientists aren't going to touch sophisticated data modeling. And as I showed you, previous work on slot floor optimization used linear programming methods, but we know that the world isn't linear. Now, the slot floor is a really complicated ecosystem. There's players interacting with players. Players are interacting with machines. Machines are interacting with other machines. There's a lot of relationships on the floor that need to be captured. And effects due to product placement add an entirely new layer of complexity. So these types of relationships really require a sophisticated nonlinear model and an AI-driven optimization end behind that. And I should note here, I think it's worth mentioning that everything we build at nQube is in-house. So we don't use any packaged AIs. We don't use any packaged functions or packaged models. Everything is custom built. Now, some of our success stories with Real AI. So Real AI has been deployed in casinos in Canada, the US, tribal nations, and in Europe. We've produced demonstrable uplifts in revenue for casinos. We've assisted in planning slot floor content for a significant casino expansion. So one of our customers recently doubled their footprint, and we were able to recommend slot content for their new casino. A modified version was used for risk assessments during COVID-19 closures. And we've discovered uplifts for casinos as well without spending any money. So is there a strategic way to reduce your slot floor, spend less money, and actually make more slot revenue? The answer is yes. Most casinos are actually in this position. And we've also collaborated with the U of M Data Science Nexus for academic casino-related projects. So why was Gigsy so important? Well, it helped us build credibility, but the pitch competition really allowed us to get our first real data set. So up until then, we were primarily using synthetic data, but that's really only going to take you so far. So having that data really allowed us to start a pilot program and really get to that final version of the product, which is in quotation marks because the product is never in its final version. And I want to mention this data because, we often say that it's data science that's delivered by actual scientists. But I think that data science businesses are a very natural fit for science students. Many businesses hire business graduates with basic data science certificates, but they're not necessarily suited to solve the same problem that a science student can. So I think that there's a real opportunity to disrupt this trend. So if you're interested in data science, science graduates have foundational knowledge, analytical thinking, problem-solving skills, computational math and stats backgrounds, and you have experience thinking on your feet. So, maybe you're not interested in science or data science in your entrepreneurial path. Maybe you're interested in retail, or maybe you're a clothing designer. That's fine, but if you're looking for opportunities to try and you're not sure yet, data science is a natural fit. And I'll just close off by talking about a couple of events that have happened to us throughout the course of business. The COVID-19 pandemic was a big one for the casino industry, as you can imagine. Land-based casinos were heavily impacted and closed around the world. They opened up at very different times. So the United States was leading the pack in opening up first. Canada was all over the map in terms of when they reopened. And Asia kind of, was last to reopen. So there was a big push in North America in particular for online gambling at the time. So if you are, if you play mobile games or if you're an online gambler, you might have noticed that the content that you see just exploded probably about a year after COVID lockdowns. And that's because there was a huge push for a market that was really previously almost non-existent in North America. So COVID really opened up an entirely new market for data scientists and data modelers in the gaming industry. Now, then the next thing and what I'd like to close out on is the rise of AI. So like I mentioned before, we were doing AI before it was cool. These are some Google Trends plots of search terms AI and casino AI. And you can see that as soon as ChatGPT was released, there's a huge spike. And that spike is very prevalent in the excitement of people about artificial intelligence now, particularly in our industry. Now, nQube, we really brought AI to the gaming space before anybody even wanted to talk about AI. Now everybody wants to talk about AI. So this can be both good and bad for business. So it creates buzz, which creates opportunity, but there's also a lot more competition. So nQube positions itself as a pioneer in the field and as subject matter experts as well. So we speak frequently on AI at conferences. We do educational seminars through different gaming outlets that allow us to, educate gaming operators about artificial intelligence and what it can do, and more importantly, what it can't do in the gaming industry. So there's going to be a lot of issue now as to hype and noise around artificial intelligence in gaming. And obviously that's concerning coming from this space, because you want to make sure that that customers are getting value for what they're purchasing. So, it's going to be interesting to see where these AI trends go over the next little while. So I'll close off with this slide, which is just kind of my advice bullet list, things that I've learned over my course in business. Learn to love traveling. I travel all the time. I love it less and less every time, but it's, learn to love traveling. Learn about your business and speak the language. You'll spend more time with lawyers and more money on insurance and taxes than you think. Build a network. You might learn business taxes. I do our business taxes every year, but you will not like it. Go to trade shows. You'll meet a lot of people there and you'll build your network. Sometimes the best deal is no deal. And I think that this applies, even in customer relationships. Like sometimes it's not going to be a good fit. Obviously, it depends on your type of business. But if you're doing services where you're regularly interacting with customers, sometimes it's just not a good fit. So I think it's important to realize when that's happening. And the same goes for things like acquisitions as well. Basically learning, when to walk away. That can be a respectful decision. And, I think that's important to not worry about sunken costs, but do what's best for your company and for yourself. Get involved. There's a lot of great local organizations. Tech Manitoba, it's fantastic. I'm amazed by all the fantastic stuff that U of M is doing in entrepreneurship now. There seems to be just great opportunity here with these different types of programs. Everything is more difficult than it seems, but definitely more interesting and rewarding. And for science students, there's so many fascinating problems out there that I just think that with your skills, you could really do anything, especially in this new world of AI and data science. And I will actually close off by talking about this picture. So this was my birthday last year. And the gentleman that wrote the paper, Kasra Gaharian, we actually became friends years later. So this is us at my birthday. That's another UNLV colleague and friend, John. But it's weird how things like that work out. So we're actually collaborating on some work now. And I'll stop there for questions. Thank you so much, everybody.
Yes, okay. All right. Thank you very much, Stacey. So now I'd like to welcome Janine Carmichael to the stage. Janine, come on up. So Janine is our faculty specialist in entrepreneurship who's joined the University of Manitoba. And she'll lead an interview with Stacey. And then after which we can have some questions. And then after that, interested students are more than welcome to come up and have a chat with Stacey afterwards. So Janine has been engaged in entrepreneurship and education for the last 20 years, and she is the university's first faculty specialist for entrepreneurship as we grow entrepreneurship programming at the university. And she's helping to embed more opportunities for students and to provide the information and programming for entrepreneurship at the university. So with that, I'll hand it over to Janine, and you guys can have a Q&A.
Stacey, thank you so much. I've been looking forward to this for weeks, and you didn't disappoint. Thank you.
Oh, I appreciate that.
Just so everyone knows, I have a couple questions for Stacey, but then there's been an opportunity for you to ask them too. So please give some thought to what you might like to ask her, and we'll make sure to save some time for that. So my first question is about what surprised you about entrepreneurship, given your background in science and engineering, then moving into business. What surprised you?
It was very difficult. I have to be honest. It was definitely a completely new challenge with very different obstacles than I had previously gone through in the academic path. We were actually having a discussion earlier. I am an introvert, big time. So being on all the time in terms of networking and things like that, I mean, it's definitely a skill to be learned. But it can be difficult, and that's not the only thing. I mean, there's as I showed in that list there at the end, there was a lot of surprises in the sense of, I do a lot of paperwork that I wasn't expecting. This was supposed to be fun. It is a blast, but it's definitely it's a difficult journey, and I would definitely recommend being prepared for that journey.
Thank you for that. Appreciate that honest assessment of it.
Sorry, I'm an honest person, so
Yeah,
I'll just,
good. Okay, we have lots of science students in the room, which is wonderful. Thank you all for coming. What would you say to students to develop, or how to develop, an entrepreneurial mindset? Not so much the business part, but how do you think like an entrepreneur?
It's a really good question. I think that, and as I mentioned during the presentation, that science students are almost, wired for problem solving and thinking on their feet, and that's an excellent skill to have when you're an entrepreneur immediately. But one thing that I noticed in myself and in my colleagues when I was, say, doing my master's or my PhD, is that you can kind of get tunnel vision on the problem that you're working on, and not really realize all the other opportunities that are out there for the skill set. In fact, I've seen many of my colleagues, when they couldn't find a job in science, they decided to go back and do different types of education, whether, that might be a certificate, that might be going into education, which is all great. But I think they might have undervalued their skill set and the opportunities that are there for them as science students. So I would say, don't get into that tunnel vision. There's so many more ways that you can apply the skills that you learn in a science degree. And, I think it's important to flex that muscle and just kind of see what else is out there.
Thanks very much. Okay, so you talked a little bit about the gaming industry and how you got into that. And I wonder, if I may ask you, how do you deal with perhaps some of the stigma around that industry and working in that industry, maybe with employees or investors, or even just people that you're talking to about your business?
Yeah, I mean, I would say that first of all, in terms of investors, I'd say typically when we do entertain things like that, we're speaking to people that are in the gaming industry. It's a very niche industry. So like you mentioned, it can be difficult for people that are outside of the field to understand how it works outside of those stigmas. But I'd say the most difficult part, I've just been, in conversations in the pub or meeting new people, when you mentioned that your job is casinos. And, there's a lot of good, and I'm not going to ignore the bad. Of course, problem gambling is a huge issue. I would encourage people to look into the research that's being done out of UNLV. And there are technical solutions that are being deployed to address problem gambling. But there's a lot of good that comes out of gambling as well. For example, in Manitoba and across Canada, gambling, fills provincial coffers. It's a huge revenue source for provinces. It fuels tribal economies. And, there's a lot of people that have better lives because of gambling. And I mean, for example, Las Vegas, it's a huge economic driver. It provides a lot of jobs for people. And, it does make people happy as well. I mean, it's an entertainment, it's an opportunity for entertainment. And one thing actually that I think is very important is that, I don't know if anyone here goes to casinos or what your relationship is with casinos, but for senior citizens, it can be a real place of community. My grandmother would go to the casino all the time, and that's where she'd meet her friends. And she's not there spending a ton of money, but it really provides, a space for people to socialize.
I'm kind of interested in your presentation. You talked a few times about the ability to communicate. As a highly trained science grad, what are the best practices that you could share with students for communicating your technology, your business, with perhaps someone with a non-science background, like me?
So this is going to be another honest answer. They all are, but this. Okay. So one thing that I find extremely frustrating is when I see other companies underestimating the intelligence of the customers that they're pitching to. And I don't know, I find that offensive. I don't like that they don't come in at a place where they're assuming that their customer can understand what they're talking about. And it's not where we operate. And I'll admit that perhaps when we first entered the space, we were overly technical, which is not necessary. But when you're speaking with a potential customer, what we like to do is just have a conversation. And, you know, if they have questions about what we do that they don't understand, I would hope that they would ask them. And similarly, I don't know everything about their operation, how they run their business, their day-to-day. I'm going to be asking questions as well. So my advice on that front is to come from a place of mutual respect and find that common ground through conversation. So yeah, I mean, it's going to be different for everybody too, though. I mean, we're very customer facing and we interact with people all the time. If you're selling a product that's highly scalable and it's out there, and that might not be necessary. But I enjoy those conversations with customers, and I think it's important. And it's funny, we've been accused way back in the day of being too technical, but I actually just got this most bizarre and wonderful compliment the other day at a convention where somebody had been to our educational seminar. And he said, "It's so great how you're able to simplify artificial intelligence." And I was like, I didn't think I was doing that. Like, maybe you just get it. So it was interesting.
Well done. Ryan, Daniel, I'm going to ask you to just work the room. If you have any questions, would you just raise your hand, and Ryan or Daniel will come over to see you. While they're just getting set up, I have a question. How do you keep yourself motivated in entrepreneurship?
Again, thank U of M for that, and countless hours as a grad student trying to get my work done. So I guess I kind of got into that pattern in grad school. I mean, another answer to that question is I need to get paid, so I've got to get the work done. But it's nice to have flexibility at work as well. I mean, the joke is kind of like I get to choose which 80 hours of the week that I work. But I mean, the truth is, like, if I have a particularly difficult week, I can take a day off. If it's, I get to decide, which is nice. I like that flexibility.
Thank you for sharing that honest perspective of what it's like. Are there any questions?
Thanks, Stacey. So thanks for sharing your experiences and thoughts. So in terms of the software, it would say, we recommend replacing this particular slot machine here. Does it actually give thoughts on what hardware to replace it with, or which companies? And
that is yeah. So
thank you.
Thank you for that question. It's a two-part answer. So what it does is it segments slot machines and players. And when it segments slot machines, it segments the attributes of those slots. So that might be manufacturer, that might be number of reels, the theme of the machine. So when we recommend purchases, there is some flexibility on the operator side. So it might recommend a specific title, but what if that title is not available anymore? So in that case, they can look to the segmentation and be like, oh, it's an IGT machine. It has this volatility, this hold, this number of reels. So they can see the characteristics that their customers are responding to, and then they could go to the manufacturer and say, well, I need a machine that's like this because you no longer make this. So it provides that flexibility within purchasing. And we're also starting a new initiative right now where we just partnered with a company that does, they actually go right down to the parts level. So parts inventory optimization. So we're working on modeling what inventory should they have on hand to minimize downtime of the machine when it has to go through repairs. Thanks.
Seems to me that what you're focusing on, at least in part, is human behavior. And I'm wondering if you think about different demographics having very different behaviors, so that seniors may be attracted to one thing, but younger people will be attracted to another. And if you're trying to basically place products where they're going to be recognized, how do you factor in those differences in humanity?
So I love that question. I think about it all the time. We don't currently segment players based on their demographics. We can, but we've decided not to. And the reason for that is all of their behavior is captured in the data and how they behave on the floor. When we're making recommendations, it's to optimize the floor for their current player base. It's not like, certainly if a customer came to us and said, we want a floor that's better for seniors, we would take the demographic, we could take the demographic information and make a floor that's better for seniors. But when our goal is optimize revenue, like increase revenue, we just want to make sure that every player on their floor is getting exactly what they need in the most optimal way, so they're spending the most money and having a good time. So certainly we can tackle that, but we just let the data speak for itself in that case. But I think it's a really interesting I wish somebody would ask us to make a floor that's optimized for a certain demographic. I think that's very cool.
Yeah, that is a really interesting question. So say, for example, there's a casino is facing changes in their demographics because of new development around them, or they want to change their image, or I guess you could provide solutions to help target the demographic that they're seeking, I suppose, if you wanted to, right?
Yeah, absolutely. That could go right into the segmentation. There was a time, and I don't think it's really like this anymore, but prior to the pandemic, everybody was so obsessed with millennials in our industry. They're like, what's going to happen with the millennials? They're not gambling. We need to get them gambling. But guess what? Millennials get older and then they become gamblers. So I think everybody kind of forgot about the problem because they realized that it's just people of a certain age that tend to be gamblers. But at the time, we did start getting those questions like, oh, how do I, get my floor tuned for all the millennials that we want to have in here? But I'll say, like, as a older millennial, I don't gamble at all. So, I mean, maybe there is something to it. Maybe I'll start gambling next year. We'll see.
So what do you see as the primary next steps for nQube? What sort of growth factors do you see, capturing more of the gaming casino market share, or expanding your tools into potentially other verticals? Where are you guys going to go?
That's a good question. Thank you. I really like what we're doing right now. There's certainly a ton of growth in our competition within gaming right now, especially in the AI space. And even though nobody really does what we do, we're all fighting for the same budget. As soon as you've got AI on the label, it does become a competition for that reason. And because of all this crazy growth that's been happening, we've had opportunities for rapid growth, but we've chosen to stay small just to kind of see what happens over the next few years in the market. We're a very sustainable company. And we love working with the customers that we have. And there are plans for growth. I mentioned the partnership that we have going, and we're really taking a cooperative attitude towards players that actually used to be our competitors. So we're starting to talk more. People have seen that we have staying power in the industry, so there's a lot more conversations about how are we going to work together now. So I think that cooperation is really part of our growth plan. We're definitely interested in other verticals. I don't know if we have time, but I mean, there's so many things that I want to work on. So I love the question, but I'm not sure, I guess, is the answer. I mean, I know where the business is in gaming right now and where I want to take it. But I'm just excited about all different opportunities.
All right, last question here.
Hi. Question regarding communication. After you did your initial presentation in Las Vegas, communication to banks, angel funds, investors, partnering, at what point, like, what did you have to put in place so you could quit your day jobs?
Oh, that's a really good question. How did I quit my day job? So, and I think that's a really good question for so many reasons, because for students, I think it's important to, and we had talked about, like, people being, should they be afraid to fail? And I don't think anyone should be afraid to fail, but the answer is, like, you should be prepared to fail. And that is also a financial perspective, right? So get to the place where you can quit your day job, whether or not that's through part-time work or because you have, I had a really good support system, partners and families, and I did it part-time for a while until we had enough customers that I could go full-time. So definitely it's an important thing to consider. Like, if you're going to go all in, just make sure that there's a safety net at the end of that. So, I mean, basically it was just, we're all bootstrapped. nQube is 100% bootstrapped. We've explored acquisitions. They weren't right for us. We've done well maintaining a small group. And we have great directors and great partners everywhere. as I mentioned in the previous question, I think that our growth plan looks like cooperation, because as former academics, we've always kind of looked at collaboration as a way to grow. But certainly it was a bootstrap process, and it was a slow process to get to full time. Thanks.
Okay, as I invite Dr. Mark back up, I have one final question for you. There's a podcast that many of us in the room love to listen to. It's called How I Built This. And Guy Raz interviews entrepreneurs and asks them to tell their story. And he always ends with this question. And so I thought I would ask you as well.
Haven't seen the
So
podcast.
would you
Or
attribute
listened to it.
your success to luck? Or is it hard work, skills, intelligence, or something else? What
Is
would
that
you
a
say?
pun? Is that a pun? Luck, of course, right? Sorry, the reason I was nervous for the question is because she kept saying, I got the best question for you. Just wait, I'm not going to tell you what it is. All of the above. All of the above. I mean, luck, I would say that like we're lucky in that we met a lot of the right people early on. That pitch competition, just randomly finding it, I don't know where we would be if we hadn't found that. That, I think, was a very pivotal moment for us. And a lot of the people that were in the audience there, that were on the panel, like they're still present in our entrepreneurial journey now. It's people that we still collaborate with, and it's I think that I would say that was the moment. So there's certainly luck, but if we didn't have the product, I mean, if a couple nerds didn't show up in San Diego and say like, we're gonna take this industry by storm, then we would probably be in a very different place right now.
Stacey, thank you so much.
Thank you.
Dr. Mark.
Fantastic. Well, thank you again, Stacey, for joining us this afternoon, and thank you, Janine, for hosting the Q&A with Stacey. And thank you all for coming out today. Please be sure to take advantage of all the opportunities that the university is offering in entrepreneurship. By all means, come visit the Science Innovation Hub, reach out to the Faculty of Science to find out what's going on, especially this is to the students and of course to the faculty. You're welcome to chat with Stacey, and there's a lot of refreshments in the back, so please stay around and enjoy the refreshments, and have a good weekend. Thank you, everyone.